This time we have a different story of a Jewish woman who was born and raised in the heart of the occupied entity. But a change occurred in her life and she chose to stand with Palestine in word and deed. And she became one of the most ardent defenders of Palestinian rights despite all the challenges. She's one of the members of the Freedom Flotilla that aims to break the siege on Gaza. So, welcome Zohar Chamberlain Regev. Zohar, let's go back to the beginning and find out how you grow up as a Jewish woman with an Israeli citizenship.
So I was born in 1970 on a kibbutz near Nazareth in the Galilee to a Jewish family, but not religious, not observing the Jewish religion. I was very much aware that Palestinians were there before. My parents, unlike many Israelis, knew already then that there is an occupation and that there is a problem with this, that we should find a way to live together with Palestinians. They had Palestinian friends. They were aware of specific acts of injustice, like the demolition of a family home near the kibbutz when I was only 5 years old. And I remember going there to show solidarity to these people whose lives were devastated because of our settling their land.
Okay, but we need to know more about the story of your family, Zohar.
So both my parents were born in Tel Aviv in 1947. My grandparents all came from Europe, my mother's side from Germany, my father's side from Poland and Lithuania. And their upbringing was a little bit different. My mother was from you could say a bourgeois home. So her father was a businessman. And she said the values that she was brought up on were very liberal, but also very humanistic. So seeing everybody as a human being and respecting rights of everybody. My father was a little bit different. His family was more religious, but more working class. His father worked in the harbor. And when my father was very young, he says he used to count how many Arabs we killed. And then when he was a teenager, he got a summer job at the port where my grandfather was working, and he actually worked with a Palestinian and became friends with him. And the story of this Palestinian and what happened to him affected my father's life in a way that he was awakened to the lies of Zionism. After they worked together, this man all of a sudden disappeared. The police took him, and then he died in the prison. And when my father heard about it, he was really shocked. But when he asked his father, the father said, they know what they're doing. They took him. Maybe he did something wrong. So my father went and talked to the friends and the family of this friend of his, and they said, no, he was just protesting against the selling of the Muslim graveyard to the people who built the Hilton Hotel. And because he protested, he was considered a terrorist. But it was actually this thing that caused my father to start doubting all these things that he was told. And then, still being part of the Zionist youth movement, he was part, together with my mother, part of a army unit that later joined the kibbutz, but he was also a soldier in the 1967 war and participated in the occupation of, I think it was Nablus in the West Bank, and things that he saw there, like the taking of a prisoner and then killing him without any reason or right or justice. And he was very young then, and him and the other soldiers did not report this as something unusual, but I think it stayed with him very much until this day as something terrible that they did. Now, I'm sorry, I'm jumping a little bit, but now we have a warrant arrest for Netanyahu and Gallant, but it's actually each and every Israeli soldier, in a way, is a war criminal. But this is, so I was born in 1970, and I was already brought into a family that was aware of the occupation, that was aware that there is a problem and there should be a different solution. Maybe they did not frame it this way. This is a lot of the language that I use today to explain all this is new, is something that, but I was definitely brought up with the ideas that are the same as I hold now.
So not just you, but as a family, you notice that there's something wrong, and the Zionist narrative is not right.
Yes. I remember an incident when I was 5 years old, and a family from Nazareth, very close to the kibbutz where I grew up, built a home on their own private land, and then couldn't get a permit for it because it was agricultural land. And my mother, who was a teacher, was on the bus going to school, which was on a different kibbutz. And she saw that this house was being demolished, and then we found out that it was actually people from our own kibbutz who called the bulldozers to demolish that house. So my parents and a couple of other families from the kibbutz really felt bad about it and wanted to show some solidarity. And so we took some tents and some things and went to visit those people. And we became friends. I was playing with the children on the rubble of their house. And for me, it was very normal. But the other children at the kibbutz were telling me, why are you going to these people? They are Arabs. You're not supposed to be playing with them. And for me, this was very strange.
But actually, Zohar, we need to know exactly what they teach you in Israeli schools. Are you really raised on the idea of hating Arabs and you must kill Arabs?
I wouldn't say that they teach you this way. It's a little bit more subtle, but a little bit more of a lie, actually, because they say we don't hate anybody. We love everybody. We come here with peace. Actually, the Declaration of Independence of the State of Israel says we stretch our hand in peace to everybody. But they say, why do they hate us? Why do the Palestinians, of course, we don't call them Palestinians, we call them Arabs, if anything, but why do they all hate us? We are such good people. We brought so much progress to this area. We make the desert bloom. But these are exactly the lies of Zionism, because for me, even as a child, it was very clear. You could see all around that there was somebody there before. And then you come to somebody's land, you are being welcomed, you can stay there, and all of a sudden you start taking somebody else's place, somebody else's land, and there is a resistance. But that does not mean that Palestinians hate us. But they say they hate us for nothing. No. If at all they hate us, their resistance is only a reaction to crimes that we committed against them later. And I think now I know much more about the Nakba. But again, the narrative in Israel is, in the best case scenario, there was a war, they ran away, we won, that's it. They need to live with the reality. But of course, this is not true. International law and the Declaration of Human Rights says any human being is allowed to leave their country and always has the right to return to their country. So even if people escaped or, just so happened to go away from a war situation, they still have a right to return to their homes. And of course, this was not the case with the Palestinians. This was an ethnic cleansing that was systematically destroying the possibility of people to return to their land, to their homes. And it's a continuing thing. And of course, we see the same kind of disastrous behavior even in Gaza today, as people are being forced to leave the north of Gaza and everything is being destroyed so that they cannot return.
Okay, so when you start to learn exactly the real story about Nakba?
I cannot really put my finger on it. I think it was a long process of learning. But again, if I try to think about my childhood or my early years, I think I always said it doesn't really matter what caused people to leave. They still have the right to come back. And so we are causing injustice by not allowing them to return. And so it was very clear for me that the problem did not start in 67. It even did not start in 48. It started with this idea of Zionism that considers Jews can only be safe if they have their own land, where they are the majority, where they decide, and where they are superior to other people, where we have, as Jews, more privileges. And that, of course, creates a situation that is not only unjust, but it's racist. It's discriminating other people on the base of their group identity, of something that they are born with and they do not choose.
Okay, but is there any turning point happened in your life that make you not just with Palestinian issue, but a pro-Palestine activist?
I'm sorry, I cannot really give you one point,
Okay.
because for me it's a continuum. I think for me it was a learning process, but there was not one point, because I feel like I knew this forever since
Okay.
there are realizations. I can say, for example, that there were points, like, for example, with the Druze, the Palestinians who are Druze, and we were always told, no, they are different. They are not like other Palestinians. They serve in the Israeli army. We were told it's part of their religion, or it's part of their, to always be part of the rulers of the land. And so they are loyal to the Israeli country. But this is not true. There is a plane of identities. And so this is something that I think I sort of swallowed this lie for some time, and then I learned a little bit more through talking to people and listening to stories, and I realized. And there is so much information that it is actually sad that not more people know it. But I cannot personally, my story is not like this. My story is a progression, because even as a young child, my family used to take me to demonstrations against the settlements in the West Bank, and to meet Palestinians, whether they're neighbors inside 48 or in other places. And there was always a feeling they are human beings just like us. They have the same rights. But I was not part of any organized activity for Palestinian rights until I actually moved out of Israel. I moved to Spain when I was 34, and then a few years after I became involved in the Freedom Flotillas.
Okay, so to be with the Freedom Flotilla was a turning point, to be an activist for Palestine.
I think
we could say that.
Yeah, I think I participated in things also before that, going to help build houses or plant olive trees in the West Bank, but never as an organized, like as a group or working together, and also this experience of doing this with people from many different countries. I think this for me was a revelation to see it's not just Palestinian rights. It's actually an understanding that as humanity, we need to stand in solidarity with one another, because the struggle is much bigger than only the Palestinian struggle. And then also this understanding of the whole problem as part of a settler colonialism problem that
Okay.
is very similar to the one faced by indigenous people in other parts of the world. And understanding this, understanding that it affects all of us, and the roots of the problem are not even just Zionism, but colonialism and this supremacy of Europeans over people in countries where they invaded.
Okay, let's talk more about the Freedom Flotilla, actually, because you were one of the people who participated in the first boat trip to break the siege on Gaza. I think it was in 2008.
I did not participate in any of these. I was aware of them. I
Okay.
lived in Spain at the time. The first time that I was supposed to be on the boat was actually in 2011. That
Okay.
was a year after the first flotilla was attacked by the Israeli Navy, and actually with lethal force. So 9 activists were killed on the Mavi Marmara, and over 50 people were seriously wounded. One of them died after 4 years in coma. And all of the people, all of the activists on the boats were kidnapped by Israel in international water and then brought against their will into an Israeli port and then later deported. But I joined the flotilla that was organized a year after as part of the Spanish delegation, but we were not allowed to sail. I think the reaction of the world to the atrocities on the Mavi Marmara was so outrageous that Israel was really afraid something similar will happen again. And so it exercised a lot of pressure on the Greek government, and the Greek government would not let us leave Greece. So we said Israel sort of like outsourced or extended its blockade to the shores of Europe, because our US boat, for example, that tried to leave Greece was attacked by the Greek Coast Guard, and they were forced to return to port.
But when you decided to participate in a Freedom Flotilla in 2011, after the story of attacking of the flotilla by Israeli army in 2010, I think you put yourself in the risk. Did you think about that at that time?
We were all very much aware. And it's interesting because we're talking about action now as the genocide is going on. And of course, people say, we knew this in 2011 when we went to the boats, that when we go to challenge the apartheid regime or the genocidal regime or whatever you want to call, you refer to it as the occupying entity, we know that they are ruthless, that they don't see a value of human life at all. I mean, they massacre Palestinians and Lebanese without any remorse. They are proud of it. They post it on social media. So of course we knew we were risking our lives, but we say we have to stand up, because if we don't do it, it will in the end affect us, because disregard to human rights in one place leads to more. This is exactly how it came to be so horrible, that we can watch a genocide going on for over a year and nobody's stopping it, because Israel is completely immune to any pressure from the international community. So we think it's our duty as human beings to do something, and we are willing to risk something. We know that the risk we take are nothing compared to the Palestinian, the risk that they face every day only for living on their land.
Let's talk more about the importance of Freedom Flotilla and what does it mean to be part of this flotilla?
So the Freedom Flotilla is a civil society reaction to the atrocities, as I say, that we see, a very long-lasting blockade of millions of people in the Gaza Strip that are denied their very basic human rights. And we use nonviolent direct action by sailing towards Gaza, which is completely legal. We buy boats, we comply with all the regulations, including the boats that we now have in Turkey that have not been allowed to sail since April. And somehow we are either blocked by the Israeli Navy or not allowed to sail by governments that are complicit with this occupation. And we believe that it is necessary for us to take this action, to empower other people around the world to know that they can. It's in their hands to defy this murderous system.
Okay. Did you pay a real price because you choose to be a pro-Palestine?
I think personally, I did not sacrifice so much. I wish to think that I'm willing to sacrifice because I will go on this boat, taking the risk, but I don't know what will happen. I'm lucky because my family accepts my activism. They don't shun me. I've had arguments with some of them over the years. My mother, for example, was very worried about me. First, she said, I don't know why you do this. There must be something else. And I would say, you show me something else we can do, and then I will consider it. But until you do, I believe this is right. And then she said, even if it's right, why do you have to do it? Maybe somebody else can do it. And I say, no, if it's the right thing to do, I should do it. And then I can invite more people to join. With my brother, it was not the same. I think my brother finds it more difficult to understand what I am. And again, I think the notion of Israelis is so distorted. It goes back to the question of what are we taught? We are taught they are all terrorists, they all hate us, and then it's okay to kill them. And so the sort of brainwashing and dehumanization is very, very harmful to us as Israelis. And I actually feel very, very sorry for all these people, because I think a big reason why it's important for me to act against this injustice is actually to protect my own humanity.
Okay. So you feel that responsibility as an Israeli citizen?
Definitely.
Toward Palestinian
Definitely.
people?
You know, the kibbutz I grew up on was founded by Holocaust survivors. So we were always told the world was silent while we went to the gas chambers to be exterminated. And so how can we be silent when our people are committing injustice? Even before it was a full-blown genocide, it was injustice. It was, millions of people have become refugees because of us, and we just don't care. And we complain about the world when it dares to criticize us, and we say they're all anti-Semites. I think this is so false and so bad for us because it's causing more harm to Israelis and to Jews to dismiss this criticism as if it was anti-Semitism, because then the real anti-Semitism, when people are really hated just because they're Jews, it is mixed in with all this. I can see this in Germany now. Germany is being so supportive of this genocide, blaming it on the Palestinians. They say they were attacking Israel on the 7th of October. But how can you take this so much out of context and not see that this was an act of resistance? And how can you blame the Palestinian activist in Berlin for importing anti-Semitism into Germany when they know their dark history, that they actually massacred not just Jews, but Sinti and Roma and millions of Russians? It's just unbelievable how German people can buy these lies from their government today.
Now, after 7th October, in your opinion, and also as Israeli citizen, What has it changed?
I think these lies of Zionism are being exposed for the whole world to see.
You see that
Definitely.
in the real life.
Definitely. I mean, we've been seeing over the years with this long blockade on Gaza, with the extension of settlements in the West Bank, with the deterioration of civil rights within the Israeli society against Palestinian citizens of this entity. And we've had reports about apartheid, we've had reports about war crimes, so many things, so many organizations, including Israeli human rights organizations that, people center on them, but Palestinian human rights organizations have been denouncing human rights violations for very, very long. And it's actually sad that the world does not listen to the victims and instead needs the perpetrators to sort of justify that this is actually true.
Okay, what about the discussions between you and the other people about the Palestinian narrative and Zionist narrative? Tell us more about these discussions.
So when I moved to Germany just over 2 years ago, it was very important for me to get involved in groups that work for these issues. And one of them was, of course, a Palestine Solidarity group, but there is also an organization in Germany called the Jüdische Stimme. It's the Jewish voice for peace and justice in the Middle East. And they are actually stressing the point that the Zionist entity does not speak in our name as Jews, that it is very important for us to raise a different voice. And through activities that we hold or speeches that we give as a Jewish voice, it is always very important to stress this difference, because in Germany the terms Zionism, Judaism, and the State of Israel are all mixed up. And this is what enables Israel to use the German guilt about the Holocaust in order to justify today's genocide.
Okay. On the other hand, Zohar, we have to talk about your transformation to Islam, actually, from Jewish to Islam. So tell us about this story.
So as I say, the Palestinian cause is a political one for me, and it has many aspects. But becoming a Muslim was a choice of a spiritual path for me. So it's very much a personal thing. But I also realized that this in itself has political implications. And I can see how it's also connected, because when I told my mother, for example, when I was still doubting whether I should take this step, it was not easy for me, not so much because it's Islam, but because I was never a religious person before. And I said to her, I'm not a believer, so it's very difficult for me to do. And she said, how can you say this? You believe in justice, you believe in humanity, you believe in so many things, you are a believer. So this also helped me. But I think these are things that I knew about Islam. For example, that jihad was never this thing that most Western people think that is to kill all the non-believers. It was this concept of the greater jihad, which is an internal struggle against your own impulses. But this notion that when you see injustice, that you first of all have to do something against it with your hand. You have to stop it with actual deeds. And then only if you cannot do this, you do this with speaking with your tongue, or looking at it at least, not ignoring it, not looking the other way. And only at the very end, hold it in your heart if you really cannot do anything else. And I think this is a very strong thing for me, because I believe we need to make dua. We need to ask, for God's guidance, for Allah's guidance. But we cannot expect that justice will be done without us taking steps ourselves, because this is our test. This is what we need to do on this world. So in a way, it comes together.
Okay.
And I would say also that wearing hijab is also, apart from the fact that it's necessary when you pray to be covered, it's also a political statement, because women in Islam are very visible. Maybe men can pass in society as nobody really knows what religion you are, but women wearing hijab are identifiable as Muslims. And so for me, it's a statement, this is what I am. If I wasn't wearing hijab, nobody would think that I'm a Muslim.
Okay, so what changed exactly in your life in general and regarding to Palestinian issue after transformation to Islam?
I think I feel more connected to other people who struggle for the same thing. I can understand a little bit more this issue. It gives me strength to go on. It's very frustrating, this struggle, because we try so many years, so many times to challenge this injustice. For example, with the Freedom Flotilla, but also, of course, demonstrating every week, more than once a week since this genocide started, and we don't see any real change. We don't see, it just gets worse all the time. It's very frustrating. It's very easy to get this helplessness, and I think I find strength in the community, but also in prayer, or in this inner strength that faith gives you.
Okay, now you're still active with Freedom Flotilla and you tried to go to Gaza actually after 7th October, but you faced many challenges. So tell us about these challenges now.
So we were planning a mission in 2024, way before this started. And we actually had a scheduled meeting here in Istanbul for the beginning of November 2023. And we came here and we were all still in shock at what was, and we said, we urgently need to do something. Our mission couldn't take place with the boat that we had. And we said, we need to get more boats. We need to do something urgent. And we tried. And there were attempts to deliver aid. There were boats bought. In April, we gathered many activists here. The boats were ready to sail. Then there was pressure on the government of one of our flag states, Guinea-Bissau, and it was removed just one day. And there were people here devastated because they thought, this is my chance to actually do something to stop this, and it was taken away from them. Then we continued with the previous plan. We had the Handala boat starting to sail from Norway in May, and it stopped in many ports, over 20 ports in different countries in Europe, and was always met with, on the one hand, a great reception from civil society. A lot of people came to the boat. They were so generous. The children came with drawings, with toys that they wanted to send to Gaza, but also with a lot of political problems. In a lot of ports, we had a place, we booked everything was legal, and then a day before or a few hours before, or just as the boat was approaching, we were told, no, you cannot come to this harbor. And then the local group had to go and confront their politicians and say, there is nothing wrong with this. What all these people are doing is trying to do exactly what the International Court of Justice is saying we should all be doing. And so the boat went on and on and on, but it was an old boat. The crew was very tired. The situation in the Eastern Mediterranean was getting worse. We faced challenges with finding crew willing to take this high risk, but also technical problems. So the boats were not able to sail, but we continue, and we continue planning. We are actually here in Istanbul because our boats are still ready to sail, and now we're facing a different challenge because the Turkish government would not give them the permission to even leave the harbor here in Istanbul. And our comrades from the Turkish campaign have been doing a protest, the Freedom Watch, at the port for over 100 days now, just sitting there every day, blocking the harbor and saying, we will not leave this place until you let us sail. And this is very important, and we think it doesn't get enough exposure here because it's, of course, a political problem in Turkey. And I want to stress this. We all know how the USA actually is complicit in this genocide, how the German government is the second weapon supplier to the genocide, how Britain and France and a lot of European countries, even if they speak the right words, they still have their dirty business. But from a country like Turkey that has all the right rhetorics of, we support Palestine, we are against this, we stand with the Palestinian people. They send a lot of aid from Turkey to Gaza. And at the same time, they bend down to international pressure. And I think it's short-sighted. I really think that we should be standing together against this because history will judge us on this. And we should be able to pay a price for standing up for what is right. And I'm sure that the Turkish people, if they only knew what their government is doing, they would stand up and say, this is not right.
And Zohar, the good thing that you're still trying to find any way to be with Palestine, especially in Germany now. You are searching for the organizations, for any groups that's activist for Palestine. So tell us about this.
So, as I said, when I came to Germany, it was before October 7th in 23. There was already a year in Germany. And by that time, I was already part of a Palestine Solidarity group in Frankfurt. And we were already demonstrating because, of course, the injustice doesn't stop. It only gets worse. So we were doing things that the range of things that we do is, very wide. We don't only protest and shout in the street. We educate people. We explain to people. We hold cultural events. We celebrate Palestinian culture. We show that this is a culture of peace rooted in the land with a long, long tradition of art and poetry and food and, dress and everything. And this is also important in order to show Palestinians as human beings because of the way they are portrayed everywhere as just these terrorist, bloodthirsty people, which is, of course, not true. And so I really believe we are doing an important work. And in the term of the Freedom Flotilla, I'm glad that through these frustrated efforts with Break the Siege mission, we actually recruited a lot of participants from Germany. And I must say, most of them are not typical Germans. A lot of them have a migration background. Some of them are Palestinians who are also, maybe third or fourth time refugees from other countries. Others are from other nationalities. But still, what unites us is this understanding that there is a role inside Germany to fight for this, because this is the belly of the beast. This is where things are actually decided. If Germany decided to stop delivering weapons, it could make a difference. It could stop the genocide. So we feel our work is really important. And this time, when we came here to Istanbul, we came as a delegation of 6 people. from the German campaign. And we go back to Germany with an intention to raise funds to join a greater mission in 2025, inshallah. This will be the 15th anniversary of the first relief flotilla. So it's very important for us to remember the martyrs on the Mavi Marmara, to continue their fight, and to remind the world that as long as Palestine is not free, we will never be free.
Okay, we need to know more through you about the Israeli society, and now after the world changed toward the Palestinian narrative, and after the exposing of Zionist lying, or lies, how all of these affected the Israeli society?
You know, it's very, very sad, but I think the Israeli society lives in a bubble. They do not see the same news that we see. They have the possibility. Until recently, they could even watch Al Jazeera. Then Israel banned it. But there are ways to get to the information. There is actually even a lot of information in Hebrew. And there are people who have been recording, the photos of the children who were martyred, for example, not just now, but throughout the years, and people documenting human rights violation. But the Israeli society is turning a blind eye to it, and they refuse to see it. They keep holding on to these lies. This is the land that was promised to us by God, even if they don't believe in God. They say the whole world does not see what happened to us on the 7th of October. And, I'm thinking one of the things that even German people were telling me, when I saw how they attacked this festival of people just dancing and enjoying their freedom. And I say, do you think about these people organizing a festival 3 kilometers from a concentration camp? Do you think it is normal? I think the Israeli society just doesn't realize that there are consequences to their actions over the years. I could see it. I've been seeing the Gaza blockade as an emergency for over 17 years, and I say, it is only normal that people will react in some way. And this is not to justify any particular act, but nobody really knows. There were so many lies about what happened, and it was actually cynically used in order to justify this genocide. And this is a sad thing about the Israeli society, that even now Amnesty International is saying this is a genocide, and Amnesty Israel is saying there are human rights violations, there are war crimes happening, but we do not agree that this is a genocide. And I say, does it really matter how you call it? When people are being burned alive, when people are being starved systematically, all their civil infrastructure, schools, hospitals, any organization that tries to bring food to people, shouldn't this stop, whatever you call it? But Israeli society is holding on to all sorts of legal arguments. The Israeli army is saying, we investigate bombings when they're not there. When has ever Israel held any of its war criminals to account? Never.
Okay. Do you feel somehow that this time is the beginning of ending Israel or not?
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
I
feel that?
I think really, I still see myself as a Jew, because Judaism is not just a religion, it's an identity. And it's if my mother is Jewish, I'm Jewish. And it's part of my identity. And I really think it's not a good thing for us to have this racist ideology, Zionism, as something to hold on to. I really think that if we came to Palestine as just people and said we want to live here, we would be welcomed. Actually, people were welcomed, and Jews have lived in Palestine, and there was never a problem. And the problem is this racist ideology. So I think to dismantle this project, this settler colonialist project, will be a blessing to everybody and to the world in general. I think when Palestine is free, it will start a process in the whole region that could bring to liberation that is so desperately needed in other parts of the world. We are facing so many challenges of rising fascism, hatred of anything that is foreign, anybody who is different. This is not good for humanity. And to learn from the generosity of Palestinians and to really embrace this is so important for all of us. So yes, I really do think that when this project, which is about to end,
the
will
Zionist
end,
project.
exactly, it will open the door for something better.
Okay, I know it could be a problem to talk about that, but you're not proud of your Israeli citizenship.
Not at all.
Not at all.
I don't deny it. I know people who were brought up Israeli and gave up their citizenship for different reasons, and they don't like to be called Israeli. They prefer to deny this identity. I'm not proud of it. I feel ashamed because I belong to these people. It's you have to understand, I have friends there, and I know they send their, sons and daughters to this genocidal army. And I asked them, do you know what they are doing there? Do you realize what terrible damage these people are doing to their own souls by committing all these crimes? We've had Palestinian voices. I remember it was Ayed Tamimi, I think, who was saying, we are okay. We are fighting for something just. But what is happening to these people who are fighting just to maintain their theft? This is so terrible. And so I'm not proud of it, but I also will not deny it. And whenever I'm asked, I say I was born in Palestine because it is all Palestine, but I'm not a Palestinian. And I will only go back there if I'm invited after it is free. I don't want to live there and to have privileges as an Israeli Jew.
But by the way, you have married to a Palestinian man now.
Yes.
So did you feel somehow that you become a Palestinian because you are pro-Palestine?
Sometimes his young brother will tell me, Khalas, you're like one of us. But it's not true. It's not true, because even though I must say that becoming a Muslim, living in Bethlehem for 3 years, getting to know not just my husband and his family, but other people, listening to stories, even though I was convinced of the justice of the cause before, it became more personal. You get to know people on a different level, and there are tragedies in every home. Either somebody is a shaheed, or somebody has been in prison and suffered torture. Families are torn apart. People live in refugee camps all their life, wake up there. There is no place for dreams. It's very difficult to see any future. It's so terrible. Even little things, like Palestine has such a long coast, like from Ras al Nakura in the north until Gaza in the south, such a long coast. And so many Palestinians in the West Bank have never seen the sea. For me, it's such a natural thing. You go to the beach, you can swim in the sea, and so many of them have never seen it. It's such a terrible thing for me. It's a small detail.
Yes. We need to hear from you more about these details. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. I think it's always these little things that, we have somebody in our group in Frankfurt, or at least, and I think he's a relative of Hind Rajab, who was killed, and we speak about, because I think so many people in the world resonate with her name because her story became so famous. This little 6-year-old sitting in a car, talking to her mother on the phone, and nobody is able to reach her and help her. But he says, what about the other people in that car? Everybody was killed. Nobody remembers their name.
That's why you feel always that you need to do something. You feel this responsibility.
Of course. Yeah, every day that passes, and this doesn't stop, is a black mark on
In our
us.
life.
We do not do enough. And this is again where I think hopefully, we say, inshallah, we do our best, and the help or the justice will come, not through us, but it will come if we do something. So I have to let go of this. I cannot fix everything. I can only do the 100% that I can.
Zohar, even you live your life for Palestine, and still you don't feel or you don't see that you made any sacrificing for Palestine until now.
I feel privileged. I have a German passport. I can go and live in Europe. I can move anywhere. Even when I was living in Bethlehem, I could go through the checkpoint anytime I wanted. Maybe the soldiers will say, what are you doing there? They will stop me for a minute. Maybe one time they search my things. But this is so easy. I think other people have it much harder. I always see this, it's, even my exile, even the fact I did not want to come back for my brother's wedding, for example. And I think my brother was very hurt. But I said to him, I'm in Spain. I don't go back to Palestine to celebrate. I'm happy for you, but I don't want to be part of a party. It's not right. And so I do make these choices in my life, and I think there is a price, but I feel like I choose it, and I feel like other people's choices are very much limited. What would a woman in Gaza who is being told, leave your house without anything, go to a safe zone, and then is being bombed there. There is no water, there is no toilet, there is no food for her children. What choices does she have? And yet they say, Alhamdulillah.
What does it mean for you to live your life for Palestine until now?
It's a big word to say I live my life for Palestine. As I said, I do this for my own humanity. I think if I would not do this, I don't know, I will be doing something wrong. I live my life. I actually have a normal life. Mm-hmm. And this is, it's sometimes a struggle to say, okay, I need to do everything so that I can continue this work. But it's, again, we know from history that while the Holocaust was happening in Europe, even though there was a world war and other people also suffered, still people lived their life next to these horrible things. And now we look back at this time and we say, how could you? And now we know, because this is what it is. It's becoming normal, and this is what is so sad and terrible, that we just get used to it. Every day, more and more and more people. And this is why I think the work of the Freedom Flotilla is so important, because we show people that something can be done, that you actually can act. You don't have to continue with life as normal. And of course, this is not the only example. There are people like Palestine Action who go against the Elbit factories. They go there, they get arrested, they go to jail, but they don't shut up. And there are people in universities all over the world doing encampments, shouting, going to the parliaments, doing actions, all sorts of actions. I think this is what is needed. I think we need to create communities of resistance all over the world. People who work together, who learn that there is power in joining forces, whatever our differences. We don't have to agree on everything, but we need to know that we need one another in order to be strong and to resist these powers of evil that try to separate us and to cause us to fight one another.
Okay. And you choose not to go back to Palestine until freeing Palestine.
Inshallah.
Thank you so much, Zohar. Thank you really for... actually, you inspired me, and I think this interview would be really very interesting interview for anyone who would watch you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.